We have got to talk about this. I've got to get it off my chest. I want to talk about a sentence that sounds emotionally mature, something we have perceived to be emotionally mature historically, but has quietly wrecked a lot of good people. The sentence is be the bigger person. Dude, I swear, for a lot of us, that sentence did not teach emotional maturity. It really just taught us how to disappear in a very polite way and then be so confused about why we eventually lost our ship. So, if you're someone who is usually very calm, go with the flow, kind of aloof and flexible, the one who just doesn't want any drama, but you're also the one that when you snap, you don't even recognize who you are and what's coming up, this episode is for you.
Welcome back to The Reclaimed Woman, where reclaiming your peace, connection, and honestly, your life is our favorite topic. I'm Jess, mom, cycle breaker, certified family life coach, and this is for the moms doing two bold ass things at once: parenting their kids and reparenting themselves, because that is like a lot. Around here, we talk real life parenting, but we also talk about what's underneath it: the nervous system stuff, triggers, boundaries, repair, and how to build self-trust when you've been running on survival mode for years. And just so we're clear, this is a compassion over judgment zone. We can hold nuance. We can tell the truth without demonizing people. We can understand patterns and know that everyone has a story and everyone survives in a different way without excusing the harm that may have been done. Safety always comes first here. So if that sounds like the kind of community that you've been needing and the kind of support you're looking for, hit follow. I would be happy to grow alongside you.
Here is a pattern I see over and over again, especially with moms and cycle breakers. There's always the calm one, right? The one who keeps things mellow, who goes with the flow, doesn't like to argue, who doesn't want to make things a big deal. And you may have learned to be this person as a kid. You learned that being easy or agreeable, being quiet and helpful kept things safer. Now you carry that into your marriage, into your co parenting, your friendships, your work, your parenting. And somewhere along the way, be the bigger person became the entire emotional strategy. Here's the problem with that though: being the bigger person is not the same as being regulated. Let me say that again because it's a big one. Being the bigger person is not the same thing as being emotionally regulated. Sometimes be the bigger person is just trauma coded language for don't make this weird, don't make it messy, don't make it louder, don't make it harder, just keep the peace. Especially for women, especially for moms or people who grew up having to manage other people's emotions and be the mature kid of the family. I want to say something incredibly clearly right now. A lot of you think you are being calm, but your nervous system is actually freezing. And freeze is not peace. Freeze is immobilization. There is no movement. Freeze is, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. I don't know what's going to happen if I say it. So I'll just stay still, not say anything, walk away, and hope it all blows over. That's not maturity. And I am telling you this. God, I want to name something so it is crystal clear. And I'm going to hold your hand and lovingly tell you this because I give a shit about your well being. A lot of you think you are being calm and you are a go with the flow person, but your nervous system is actually freezing up. Freeze is not peace, it's immobilization. Freeze is, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. I don't know what will happen if I say it. So I'll just stay still or walk away and hope that all of this blows over. And that's not maturity, it's survival. And I want to clear this up because the internet confuses this all the time. People lump freeze and fawn together like they are the same thing. They are not. Fawn still like tracks the relationship. Fawn says, I'll adjust to you so that we stay connected. Whereas freeze says, if I don't do anything, maybe it just won't get worse and I don't have to deal with it. Fawn is more relational. Freeze is immobilized. Freeze is like a stuck response, whereas fawn is a way to keep the peace, to keep the relationship. So when you were taught to be the bigger person, most of you, of us, we're not being emotionally intelligent. We were just disappearing because what came as a good intent, right? Be the bigger person, don't stoop to their level, turned into a survival tactic. You were pausing yourself, you were silencing early discomfort and just disappearing. And it really starts to get sneaky because you still show up, you still help, you still say yes, but it's not really a grounded yes. It's not a clear yes. It's a pressure yes. It's a guilt yes. Let's talk about that. There are two kinds of yeses, right? There's a yes that comes from choice, and then there's a yes that comes from internal pressure. Sometimes it's an external pressure, but the external pressure leads to the internal pressure. So a guilt yes, a tension yes, a I don't want this to be weird. Yes. I don't want to deal with how this might go if I say no. Yes. And guilt yeses are not generosity. That's not being a good person. It's your nervous system trying to escape the emotional discomfort. And then we use the excuse that I'm just being a good person. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And this has really come up a lot as I've been thinking about it in terms of religious communities. I, as a Christian, see that where you feel like you have to do something, even if you don't feel like you have the capacity, because you're like, well, that's what God would want me to do. He would want me to help other people. And while that may be true, He wants us to help other people. It's not at a cost to ourselves. It's not, He doesn't want us to be run ragged to where we're not healthy either. And so there's a balance there. Think about how often you say yes because you feel bad, because you don't want to disappoint, you don't want to seem difficult, because you don't want to rock the boat, you don't want the looks that you get, you don't want the tone, you don't want the sigh, you don't want the conversation or the judgment. And so you don't check in with your capacity. You just check in with that moment and you say yes to end that moment. And not because it's the right move for you to make, not because you actually want to, but because your body wants the tension to stop. And I'll take the religious part one step further in saying you can't serve other people in the way God intends for you to serve other people if you are in such a high stress state or in such a burnt out state. You're not able to show up in the way that He intends for you to show up. God doesn't intend us to show up burnt out and snappy and not giving our best. Our best is when we are physically and mentally and emotionally healthy. And here's the part that I don't think anyone really tells you. The kind of yes that comes from all of that builds resentment. And it's not because you're ungrateful, even though you will probably tell yourself it's because you're ungrateful, but it's because you abandoned yourself in that decision. Nobody forced you, but your nervous system did. And that creates this fake agreement. And fake agreements turn into resentment and big anger later. And I don't love to use absolutes, but it will always turn into some type of anger when you are making fake agreements and forcing yourself into things you do not have the capacity for. It will bubble over. And that's why be the bigger person becomes toxic. I'm going to walk you through the loop here. Be the bigger person, let it go, don't bring it up, don't start something, don't be dramatic, right? Keep the peace, stay calm. So you swallow that irritation, you swallow disappointment, confusion, the little moments that bothered you or got under your skin. You swallow that 2 out of 10 discomfort. And then you get to the 4 out of 10 frustration and you swallow that too. And you feel hurt or worn out, burnout. You swallow that. You swallow the awkwardness. You swallow the this doesn't really feel good to me and the acknowledgement of how you feel in your body. And then you tell yourself that you're being the bigger person, you're being mature, you're doing what you're supposed to do as a mature adult. But the reality is, nothing is getting released, nothing's getting processed, nothing's being repaired. That pressure just builds and builds, and there is no release valve. And then one day, our friend fight shows up, not as calm communication, not as grounded boundaries and clarity, but it shows up as snapping and sharpness and that bitchy tone that we don't want to have, but comes out anyway. It comes up as that I'm done kind of attitude. The big global black and white statements and the blaming and the emotional spilling and explosions. And then everybody's looking at you like, where did that come from? And then you feel like the crazy one, right? But what happened through all of that is that the freeze failed. Anger is a secondary response often. Usually there's something underneath it. You can be angry, but most of the time we get angry out of hurt or out of sadness or frustration, right? It's usually that secondary emotion and it's not a primary response. It's a backup system. So your nervous system tried the silence, the shrinking, the compliance, being the bigger person and walking away or staying quiet, not rocking the boat. And when that stopped working, it protected you very loudly. And that's why the anger starts to feel messy and why your reactions feel bigger than the actual moment. And people are like, well, that was a little much for just this little thing, right? It's why you can't always even explain exactly what you're upset about because it's not about what just happened in that moment, but it's an entire backlog of stuff that's been piled on. It's about everything that led up to it that never got a voice. I want to be really, really honest here and really, really compassionate at the same time. You cannot hold people responsible for boundaries that you have not communicated. People can't read your mind. And I understand why you didn't communicate them. Both of those things can be true. There's so much more nuance to our life than that. You're not wrong or bad for freezing and doing what you thought was right in the moment. Your body learned that those conflicts were not safe. Your body learned that speaking up had consequences, whatever they looked like. It learned that being the easy, go with the flow person protected you. And that all makes complete sense. And it doesn't stop the impact. We still have a reality sitting in front of us, and we don't need to hold guilt for that. We bring in the awareness so that we can do better next time. It's that know better, do better thing. They can't do better if they don't know about your boundaries. And you can't do better if you don't even know your boundaries. Now, let's bring this all into our parenting because this is where I see moms beating themselves up so freaking much. You try to be the bigger person with your kids. So maybe you over explain boundaries or soften the limits or avoid frustrations. You avoid meltdowns. You rescue them from discomfort. And it may not even be coming from a place of be the bigger person. Sometimes it just comes out of love. We want to rescue them from any pain. So we rescue them from that discomfort. We negotiate sometimes when we're exhausted and we try to stay endlessly calm, not because we're weak, because we're badass moms, okay? But because our bodies believe that if everyone is regulated, then I am safe. If everyone is chill, then I'm good. So you carry the emotional labor. You carry the regulation and the patience and the repair and the flexibility until you don't, until you snap and raise your voice and feel short and sharp and irritated and out of character for who you want to be and who you are. And then you feel like shit afterwards. And you think that you're failing at the whole gentle parenting thing and you're messing this up. And why can't I get it together? No, absolutely not. You are not failing. You're burning out from erasing yourself, essentially. You're not an angry mom. You're a frozen mom whose nervous system has hit her capacity threshold. We see all of those things about mom rage. Is she just angry or is it all of these things? That's exactly what it is. And this is where it becomes generational. When kids grow up watching us stay silent about discomfort and only speak when we're overwhelmed, they learn that we don't talk about the little things. We only talk about the big things. We don't blame, we don't name irritation early on. We just keep the peace until we yell. And it's normal. We just yell. Everybody yells at each other. Woo. I have no experience with that. That all becomes our emotional blueprints. And it's not because we're doing anything wrong. I cannot stress that enough. We are not doing anything wrong by being human beings. It's just that there might be a better way, right? It doesn't make it bad or wrong or doesn't make you a failure. We learn what we learn, we know what we know, and we do better when we know better. And that's the whole experience of going through life and growing is we learn as we go. It's your emotional blueprint because no one ever taught you to stay present with your discomfort before it became dangerous, really, in your body, before it became that itch that just needed to come out and be scratched. And it is especially hard if you have a lot of trauma. If you grew up in a house where conflict was like punishment, withdrawal, emotional shutdown, rage, abandonment, and Lord knows there's a lot of other things that showed up. In those times, your body's hearing, be the bigger person, as stay safe. Don't risk that connection. Don't risk being too much. Don't risk being seen. That was very much real in my household growing up. I wanted to keep the peace. I was more of the fawn. If I just worked everything out, then everyone could be chill and we could live a happy life, right? So I tried to just make sure everything was sunshine and daisies all the time, and it didn't matter how I felt. It didn't matter what was going on in my life. That was not my first priority because that I could handle later. Right now, I needed to handle what was going on in front of me, and it was not healthy. So I want to ask you a really honest question. Where in your life are you being the bigger person instead of being an honest one? Where are you staying quiet instead of catching your signals early? Where might you be freezing instead of actually participating and engaging in life and in your relationships? And just think about those and just notice what comes up without shame, just the data of knowing this is what's been coming up for me. And the real skill shift is not be louder or harsher, not suddenly become hyper confrontational, but be earlier. Be earlier with your discomfort and your confusion. Be earlier with your irritations when things don't feel right. Be earlier with your limits. That is the regulation side. Regulated doesn't always mean calm. It just means that you express what you need to express so that it's out, and then you can move forward from there. Regulation, it is not silent. I want to give you a really simple practice. If something hits a 2 in your body, whatever that feels like, name it at a 2, not when it becomes an 8. A 2 can sound like, you know, that did not land great for me, or that rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't really like that. Can we just take a second? Or I'm not sure how I feel about this. Or I need a minute to process. That's not conflict. That's not arguing or fighting. It's actually it's nervous system hygiene, really. But I also want you to start noticing your body when you're about to agree to something and notice, are your shoulders collapsing? Does your chest get tight? Do you feel clenched? Do you feel a yes come out of your mouth before you've really decided what you want to do? Are you saying yes because you're hyped up and happy now, but you might change your mind later because realistically you just don't have the time and energy to do that? That is your moment. That's the moment where the be the bigger person used to kick in. That's where you get to practice staying present with yourself instead of disappearing or yesing somebody just to keep the peace. Contrary to popular belief, quiet is not peace. Quiet is just the absence of noise. Peace is the presence of safety and joy and contentment in your body. And if your peace requires you to stay silent about your limits, that's not peace. That is self abandonment dressed up as maturity. You can still be the bigger person, but we're going to redefine that. The bigger person is not the one who can tolerate the most. The bigger person is the one who can tolerate small discomfort now instead of creating big pain later. You don't have to stop being kind. You don't have to stop being compassionate or caring about other people. You just have to stop disappearing and learn to have compassion for yourself as well. Your nervous system doesn't need you to be bigger, it needs you to be present and in the moment and honest with yourself. And if you're listening to this and realizing you honestly don't even know what your default survival response is, I have a free nervous system style quiz that helps you see your pattern in real life without the shame. It gives you details on how you might be showing up and why it can be a good thing to be that response as well. And if your snapping moments as a parent show up around like the same triggers, bedtime transitions, a tone, homework, messes, disrespect, whatever that looks like, my repeat triggers playbook helps you map those moments and actually change the pattern instead of just promising you're going to try harder next time. Because actions speak louder than words, right? It takes action. So, willpower is not a nervous system strategy. You have to have some kind of a system and a plan for when things inevitably go sideways because they do. That's life. That's humanity. It's not going to be perfect. And that's where I can definitely use an absolute term and say it will never be perfect. However, it can be easier. It can feel lighter. It can come out so much more beautifully when we can spend more time learning to have compassion and check ourselves earlier than stuffing things down, snapping, and feeling like shit and wrecking our relationships because we just don't want to say anything. Peace that costs your voice is not peace. It's quiet, and you deserve better than quiet. I know as a mom, we want quiet, but it's kind of like that quiet of when your toddler is playing with the slime in the next room and you're like, what did they get into? That's not peaceful quiet. That's a quiet of like, ooh, something is wrong here. I want you to have peace and joy and contentment in your life and not because you've put yourself last.
Alrighty, friend. If this episode hit, helped, or made you feel a little bit less like a hot mess doing this all by yourself, I'd love it if you would take a second and leave a review. It helps this show reach all the moms who are still sitting here thinking, is this just me? Am I freaking crazy? Because that's really the whole point. And if something came up for you, questions, thoughts, or a topic you would love for me to talk about, come tell me. You can message me or use the link in the show notes to share what's on your mind. This show is shaped by real stuff that you're living, not just what sounds good on a content calendar. All right, take a deep breath, take what you need, and leave the rest. And I hope you have a stellar week.